welcome, guys.
We're
We are here
live.
for a impromptu. Well, it's not really impromptu. We planned on tonight. Tonight is planned. Our subject matter has changed very last minute. Karma could not be here. Last minute little snag, and so we're going to bring her back in 2 weeks. So tonight we actually last minute change of plans. Let me throw a new banner out here because I did. This is tonight's subject. Just so everybody knows, we are going to talk about the issues that have been coming out, obviously, about what's happened at the Olympic Games, and discuss. And we kind of discussed this in a previous episode about what happened when you created these laws and when you had so much anti-trans rhetoric going around. What was going to happen with safety for all women, whether trans women, whether straight, didn't matter, that you were creating danger for this entire group. And so that is kind of what we decided that we would. I was already going to say a statement. I told Jenny we were going to kind of address that at some point. Hey, Jeffrey, at some point during the show. But when Jenny called me and was like, Karma's having some issues, I was like, it's fine. We'll go with. And I believe I looked it up, and I believe, and if I say it wrong and somebody knows, I'm so sorry. I believe it said Imane Khelif. Iman is how I looked up, is the way her name is pronounced. Or at least that was what it was giving me as the proper pronunciation. So hopefully I'm not screwing her name up. But there was a big thing that came out this week, guys, if you didn't hear about it, where this Algerian boxer was in competition and they pretty much said that, well, within 47 seconds, the other participant backed out and had said that the hits were too hard, they couldn't continue on, and they dropped. And a lot of pushback came out saying, going against Amon, claiming that she was a man, that she was a trans man, or a trans woman, and that she was trying to, sorry, I'm getting pop-ups in my browser, but that she was trying to, come into a sport. And that's the whole thing. She wasn't. We knew this already. Everybody at the Olympics already knew this. It had already been substantiated. And so here all this backlash went against Amon. She's from a country that you couldn't transition even if you wanted to. Quite all right. Jenny has dogs. You will hear them on occasion. And so, that was kind of the pushback. And it got so bad that the Olympic Committee came out and even made statements, like flat out going, there, she is a woman, like, stop. The truth of the matter was the other participant, and I'll be honest, I haven't even paid attention to her name. The other participant that dropped, she had been in a previous fight, her, I wouldn't, I don't know if you say competition, event, if you will, but she had been hit in the nose. And the problem is that the previous injury, it was not healed. And that's why she really pulled out and couldn't continue. And we talked about the differences of hormones on here. We've talked about genetic disorders and how there are women with genetic disorders that will read differences with their hormones. And that's the reason why specific events like the Olympics have their own, what would you call it, parameters that you have to meet as far as testing goes, right? Before you can compete for an event. She was cleared. And there's still this pushback. And the problem is you've created danger for her. And more specifically, in the country that she's from, can you imagine the amount of danger around her and her family now? And this is the bigger problem that Jenny had kind of talked about when you push myths, when you push, misinformation, disinformation. If you don't know what you're talking about, you really are putting people in harm's way. And this put her in the crosshairs.
It is illegal to be transgender where she is. That's so wild to me. But, it is what it is. And, there's now all of a sudden, of course, everybody's an expert in, chromosomes and hormones and biology. And, we've been round and round on this show about this, but are always happy to pick it back up. There are factors that go into determining, I guess, how people, really, it just comes down to how people are perceived.
Right.
Ultimately, to trust people to know themselves. I had an interesting conversation with my dad today, and he was like, oh, so, if you can figure out, because we talked about the neurobiology of being trans and these different neurons and neuroreceptors that exist in between the amygdala and the hippocampus that are very predictably one size in biological males and a different size in
Right.
biological females, and how trans people will have the same size, or it might be size or it might be amount of those neurotransmitters and neurons that align with the sex they know them, they're the gender they know themselves to be. So,
Right.
you know, if, and, you know, and then my dad's like, oh, so that's how we would find out, is just looking at that. Well, for
It's
for now,
complicated.
but we know that now. In 40 more years, what will we know? What will
Right.
we know about neurobiology or about how different things interact in our bodies? We didn't know what we didn't know. Now we
Right.
do know more. And if we keep kind of, you know, creating those hard lines in the sand and going, oh, okay, well, if that's what this is, then now we
That's where we
know. Well,
stop.
for years we find something else out. Just trust people to know who they are, and don't
Right.
stop giving, and don't worry about it. And I know we're going to get
Right.
plenty in like testosterone and SRYs. So I will just let you keep
Well,
going.
I mean, I'm honestly, I'm not even going to go super deep into those tonight, like, because I do feel like we've gotten to this point where it, like you said, you pointed out a huge one, and honestly, next week, which is funny. So if you're watching this and you want to talk about how disinformation and misinformation, what they can do, the damage and the harms that they contribute to, check out Lyrical Labyrinths next week, because we're going to talk about several songs that will really talk about all these little misnomers, if you will. Actually, they're not any misnomers. It's false. They're falsities. That's
Yeah.
all they are. They're falsities.
Yeah.
And people push this until, and they say it loud enough and they repeat it loud enough until certain people are influenced to believe that. And and then they push that initiative. They push that agenda. They push that harm.
Yeah.
And the harm is on people. And again, I don't remember when we got so rude, as I feel like, you remember, what is it? This old, no, what is it? What's the show? Michelle, you know what I'm talking about.
Full House?
Yes, yes, that's rude.
Oh,
Like, I mean,
rude.
that's like, how rude. Was it her? Or was it Stephanie that said that? Was that Stephanie who said that? How rude? Yeah, it was the middle. It's the middle
Yeah.
daughter. So yeah, like I think about that, and every time I
I,
see,
yeah.
right, every time I hear these people say this, I'm like, how rude of you to speak about someone in that way that you don't know. You have no idea the experience that they're going through, what distress that puts them in, and
Yeah.
what you running your mouth about something you don't know about, what that's doing to them,
Right.
and the impact. And as a friend of mine said this morning on the phone, they were like, it's like everybody turned into Mean Girls. Like the world turned into Mean Girls, the
Yeah.
movie. Like let's all be mean girls. Let's all like criticize and call out and be nasty and push back and hammer down on people. And it really, like, Simone Biles. We're talking about Olympics. So Simone Biles at certain points has been given certain terminology because of her build, right? Because she has such a powerful, muscular, athletic body. She's been second guessed about her femininity for the same reasons. And it's the same thing. And you look at 3 years ago, she was picked on because she knew she had the self awareness to go, my mental health is not where it needs to be. When I'm going up into the air, I can't determine where I'm going to land and how dangerous
Right.
that is. And if you don't know this, Simone Biles pulls off like the most difficult stunts, vaults that have ever been done. And when I say that, I mean like her points outscore the top scores that have ever been produced as far as like an exercise. It's such a difficult vault, her Yurchenko, which has actually been renamed to Simone Biles 2 or Biles 2. When she pulls that move, it's so difficult. And most men don't even pull it because they don't even have the power to do it. It's the kind of vault maneuvers she does. Most gymnasts will start off with vault maneuvers that when they land, if you get in the twisties like she does in the air as she pulled out for, you will land on your feet. You will land on your hands. You will land on your belly. the vaults that Simone does, she will land on her neck.
Right.
She will kill herself because
Right.
that's how, but she is so powerful. If you ever see her, she can hardly ever stick a landing because her power is like, it like pops her right back off the mat. She has to have that pop back. She even her difficulty level, I didn't know this, but like her difficulty level on that move, she has to have her coach on the mat in case something goes wrong so that he can jump in to try and help her. But she takes a point 0.8 tenths, 8 tenths of a point off deduction automatically for her coach to be there. But that's how difficult the move is. And she still
That
outscores,
is.
right? The
You
girl's a
go.
goat. I think I saw, what was it? NBC had a thing out on her today describing like her height, trying to describe to people like how tall she goes, like her height when she
Yeah.
spins and her vaults. And they were doing it with goats. And so it was like goats stacked on top of each other. Like I can't remember how many goats it took to hit like 12.9 feet is how far off she goes. And they were
Yeah.
just like, they had goats stacked on top of it with like an pointing to her height. I was like, that is freaking great.
Yeah.
But she's gotten some of this same rhetoric because of the masculinity of her build, because of her muscular structure. And we've heard this before. I responded to someone last night on LinkedIn on a post who was talking about this issue, what's going on with Iman. And she was bringing out, there was I can't remember what she did. I think she may have been like track and field. Like, I feel like it's shot put or something of this nature. I don't quote me on that. And I can't remember her last name, but it was in some of the Olympics in the 80s, and her name was Fatima. And she was a very masculine built woman, very large, but I mean, she had the strength to like toss the shot put, whatever it was that she was doing, right, for her sport. But we didn't have the anti trans rhetoric then
Right.
that we do now. And so what she was saying was she could only imagine that if she were in the Olympics competing this time around, that she would be getting some of this same backlash.
For sure.
Right?
And this started long before these Olympics. So there's a great one. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do all the research. I will handle it. And we are gonna do a show on this other Olympic athlete who was, I do know that her first name was Helen, and I believe she was Polish. And this was in the 1930 something Olympics. And same deal. Everybody was like trying to look at her genitals. If you look back at her photos, she looks very manly. She just does. But she, and I don't know if she ever went on to have children or whatever, but obviously they're already invading like her in that way. And
Right.
so much so that after she got out of the Olympics, and as you do, because you don't stay in them forever, and went on
Right.
to do what she did. And later when she died, they were even like autopsying her to try to figure out, which is just so sick and invasive. Like, leave a person alone in death. But anyway, it turns out, guess what? She was intersex. And so if we want to
1930s, we didn't know what that was. We didn't
right,
know what that was in the 1930s.
know so much more now. And we're going to know so much more in 10 years. We're going to know so much more than we know now. So to insist that we have to know everything now and everything has to check off all these boxes, that whole crowd of, well, a woman is this and a man is this, is starting to discover, and it's a great thing. You have no idea. All you remember is your sixth grade biology class. It said XX and
Yep.
XY. Cool. We all did that. It was too much to try to teach. We didn't learn about SRYs. We didn't learn about, we didn't learn about intersex. But that just
Right.
means, I saw this recently. I saw it as like a little Facebook meme or something. That just means that at the end of the day, if that's where you're still at, you are only as smart as sixth grade biology. There are
Yep.
actual scientists. There are
Your
actual
middle school biology.
who do this, and they're trying to tell you it's more complicated than that. And yeah, some women produce more testosterone. They just do. Hey, guess what? I took for years a drug called spironolactone. If you are a trans
Yep.
woman watching, you know that drug. You know that drug because you've probably taken that drug. It is an
Yep.
androgen blocker. I overproduce male hormones. You know what it does to me? It causes little black hairs on my chinny chin chin, and I don't like them. But what it used to really cause that was bothersome was bad cystic acne. Anytime you
Hmm.
see a cisgender woman with or men, anybody with androgens, which could be anybody.
Right.
Extra bad cystic acne right here. That is hormonal
I would say
acne.
it's pretty much beard zone. It's
It's
beard
wherever.
zone. Like whether it's a woman or a man, it would be the beard zone, and that's where they break out. It's over the mouth, under the chin, and usually like it
Yep.
doesn't necessarily hit along the jawline. It's usually like the cheek line, like
Mine
right
were
underneath their cheekbones.
so cystic and deep and painful and awful, and they weren't the kind of acne that you could like put a pimple patch on or use
Right.
active. I mean, it was very hardcore. It's a very hormonal based acne, and so I
Right.
took that to deal with that and to deal with my little chin hairs. Now, since I'm perimenopausal now at this point, so my hormones are kind of changing. I had a hysterectomy, so even though I kept my ovaries, there's some changes going on there. I haven't had to take it in a while, although I still get a call. I'm going to do a little tweeze, but that doesn't make me not a woman. What's interesting,
Right.
and Amber talked about this before, is it very well may be the reason that I have a transgender son, because when
Right.
you have more elevated hormone levels during your pregnancy, or even just as normal, a lot of women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome get those same kind of
Yep.
symptoms, that you are more, there might be a correlation in
Right.
whether or not a child who's transgender and how their hormones or their chromosomes, and we don't know everything. I'm not an expert. Amber's not an expert. We're not sitting here pretending
Right.
like we thing like everybody else who's getting on social media, right? Saying like, well, it's this and it's this. We don't know, but that's the point. We
Nope.
don't. We're gonna keep finding out. The more I learn, I'm like, what's an SRI? Or SRY? What does that do? And then I find out, I'm like,
Right.
that's cool.
Right.
We don't. So how about just not fucking hating and discriminating on people when you don't know everything? Because you
Right.
don't, dear LinkedIn, dear YouTube, dear Facebook people, you don't know everything. You don't
No.
know everything. You don't know anybody's genetics. You don't know all their chromosomes.
Google. Like just because you Google it and you get a Google answer doesn't mean that Google knows it either.
It
Just
also doesn't
FYI.
start really comprehending what you're reading.
Right. 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 Like that's the really bad part. And we actually in the future are going to have an episode because we did talk about it with Dr. Diana back in the spring. We had her on 3 times in a row so that we could kind of talk about gender affirming care for the different age groups and how to support them. And we had both talked about, and what Jenny just mentioned about how there's this correlation between what a mother has hormonally going on with her own body and then being pregnant, what that can do as far as a fetus in their formation for gender identity. There is some linkage there. And Dr. Diana is our expert that we'll bring in to talk more about that. She also will talk about how we've also discovered that there are correlations as far as like you talked about the neurobiology, that we found that in MRIs, I think it's MRIs, don't quote me on that, but in certain scans, brain scans, we have found that there is the certain part of the brain that does determine gender identity. If you are, it will match what your child identifies as, not what they were born with. And so I think that is also another correlation that we're talking about is evidence, but these are new things that we're learning. And that's because I went through nursing school, 2 nursing programs, almost completely, 1 semester short of my BSN. And I can tell you that we didn't talk necessarily about, we were talking a little bit about hormone, but we weren't talking about crossing hormones. We weren't talking about like if you were getting pregnant, we didn't talk about trans people whatsoever. We didn't talk about bodily autonomy and supporting those patients in the healthcare environment either. So if as a nurse, I'm not being taught how to uphold their autonomy, are we teaching med school students how to give them the best care? Not care for cisgender people, but for a trans woman or a trans male, or for an intersex, or for non-binary. Are you giving them the care that they deserve and that they need? And the thing is because we had people that pushed back against this and said, it's not scientific, we don't believe in it, blah, 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 blah. We have a smaller set of scientists that are in this field right now. But I don't think that's staying that way. I believe that's going to expand because you have more people who are willing to say science does change. Most scientists, most doctors will understand that science changes over time and that when we find better evidenced research that says, okay, this is what you should move to, that's when we change it.
And
And
I
we
want
don't do it, and
to
we don't
interrupt.
do that until we can like repeat that repeatedly, like not just you, not like I go out and say this happens and I repeated the project 50 times and I got the same result. No, lots of other scientists in the same field can go out and reproduce the same exact numbers. And when that happens, that's when we change those protocols, and not until then. It's not willy nilly. Somebody said, oh,
Right,
we should support trans people one day. And so they started to create trans care. That's not how WPATH was created.
right. There is I watched Neil deGrasse Tyson the other night, and I like to listen to him. I like to listen to Star Talk to help me sleep. He's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. But something that I absolutely adored that he said was, it also isn't this thing where one day you go, because we used to believe that everything revolved around the earth, right? And then we
Right?
became, uh, I can't remember the word for it, but it's heliocentered. Oh, well, the sun is the center of all this. And he said, and then we find out all
Right.
these things, and science does grow. It doesn't necessarily change. It builds on itself. You
I'm
can't
saying it evolves. It evolves.
you can't get to a place where you go, oh, well, we just found out that never mind, cancer cells do this. The only way you got to that new conclusion is because you had all the other stuff behind it. It
Right.
built on that. This wasn't some new idea. It's kind of like the you know, people who are very anti-abortion, and they're like, oh, well, you can see inside the womb and the fetus looks like this. The only reason you know that is because of the science that was developed, and the same science that's telling you, yep, that is what it looks like. There is no brain activity. That's actually not a heartbeat you're hearing right there at 6 weeks old. You're hearing, these flutters of, you know, uh,
Electro.
electrical activity that will
Yep.
make a heart. And so, people do, it's anything. Everybody wants to cherry pick anything, but just as Jeffrey said, it is building blocks and is built on
Yep.
that. And it's what makes science so much more reliable than something like superstition or something like faith. It's
Right.
great, but you're stuck there with what you have, whereas science continues to build on each other. It continues to answer bigger questions. It continues to hypothesize and then test and then retest and then eventually
Right.
theorize. That's the purpose of it. So whatever's going on with Imane Khelif, whatever's happening with her and her body, 20 years from now, we may discover something. Oh, well, this contributed to it too. But here's the freaking thing. Her win-loss record, okay, she has 9 defeats and 5 wins. She has lost almost twice the number that she has
Right.
won, which means more women with regular old, not extra testosterone women have actually beaten her than she has
Right.
beaten anybody. Lots of people have extra testosterone. We already went over my situation. Lots of men have extra estrogen. You'll see men who will have actual breasts, not just because they're chubby,
Right.
have man breasts because they overproduce things like estrogen. Are we now just going to are we drawing a line? Like, are we going to start testing every single athlete and then being like, okay, well, here's the cutoff of how much testosterone you're allowed to have naturally occurring in your body? Are we going to start drawing a line at, hey, if you want to play basketball competitively, cool, but 6'4" is our drop off, or is our line limit, because everything else after that really has an unfair advantage? Are we going to start saying, hey, we're going to IQ test every student that applies for a scholarship, because if your IQ is over this, you really have an advantage? Our
Right.
athletes already have an advantage. That's why they are athletes, not
That's their
athletes,
talent.
just hard work and dedication. You naturally just have something there that I don't have, and that's
Right.
okay. Sometimes it is, don't get me wrong, it is a lot of hard work. I'm not saying that every single person has some kind of physiological advantage, but generally speaking, a leaner body can do this in the water that a different kind of body can't do. And a lot of times, what our bodies are is just very genetic. I
Right.
cannot touch my toes. I stretch long enough, maybe I could, but somebody who can is going to have an advantage over me in something more, along those lines. People have advantages. That's part of life. You're in competitive sports. Um, you know, it's,
That's just what happens.
and then,
We don't have to like bring it down to it's because she's a man and that's why suddenly she has
right.
extra talent. Um,
Oh, because she's a man. A woman couldn't possibly do that. It's got to be all that extra testosterone. That woman has fought and she has trained. And by the way, she has lost more than she has won. So, it just comes down to so much goofy, spreading of that misinformation. They see it and
Yep.
oh my God, she failed the genetic test, which by the way, we don't even know what kind of testing
Right.
they did. You can't
Right.
find it. Go on a
Nope.
search for that. Try to find out exactly what they did, and you can't find it. So we don't even really know what that's about, but either way, it's neither here nor there.
You're right, Jeffrey. They're grasping at straws.
They're just grasping at straws, and it's harmful. This is not new in the Olympics, though. Again, this
No.
Polish woman I was telling you about in the 1930s, and it really just comes down to, in my opinion, looking at someone and then going, well, they're not looking feminine enough, so now we have to doubt them, or they don't look masculine enough. Doubt them. And nobody ever does that with a trans man. It's all misogyny. Nobody cares.
And it's kind of the post that I commented on last night. She's not even a connection of mine. I just happened to see it, and she was talking about this topic. And she's the one this is the one that mentioned Fatima from the 80s.
Yeah.
And in it, toward the end of it, because I just thanked her for making the post, because at the very end of it, she was talking about 7 times out of 10, you are going to get it right that it's a woman or a man. But there are times that you're not going to get it right. And why the hell does it matter to you? If you're not in that ring, if you were on the other side of that glove,
right?
Why does your opinion, and I'm not trying to be ugly or rude here, but why do you think your opinion matters? If you're against my kid, why do you think your opinion matters?
Your opinion is garbage. Goodbye.
Right? Right? Like, I mean, that's an opinion, guys. Like, we can love it or leave it. Like, you don't have to, whatever. That's an opinion. We all have them. They're all different. It does not make it fact, and it doesn't make it okay to target somebody. This little thing that I have written up, it was just talking about, false claims of gender identity. So there have been unfounded claims that she is a man or biological male. And then, like I said, the International Olympic Committee had to come out and do a special conference, a press conference, because they felt like there was so much pushback on her. There was so much vitriol and rhetoric being spread about her that was false information, that they came out to clarify that all the criteria to compete in the women's category had been met, that she was not transgender or intersex, and there was no evidence to support the online speculation that was being spread about her. And that's a pretty big deal when the International Olympic Committee has to break out during the Olympics
to make a statement about an athlete that was literally competing because she'd met all the criteria. The fact that she was competing was all the evidence you needed that she had met all the criteria. Because especially such a fucking hot button issue right now, nobody's leaving a stone unturned.
Nope.
Did you hear that?
And the Olympics have had theirs. The Olympics, we covered this before. The Olympics have had their actual, what they consider their criteria. They have had that criteria set since 2010.
Yeah.
So this isn't new criteria. It's been around for a minute.
Yeah. And did you hear that the woman that, couldn't take a hit,
lost?
Like, I couldn't take a hit either. So no tea, no shade. No, she issued an apology. And if you look back over it, it wasn't like she was going, I'm dropping out of here because that's a man that hit me. It just hurt.
No.
Now she's completely, oh my God, this thing, all I did was say, I don't want to do this, I'm hurt, has turned into this.
Right.
And that's what she intended.
Right.
And
I'm sure there's been some negative, comments sent her way too. Right.
Oh,
and she didn't do it. And she didn't do it. And then you've got, honestly, and that's what we kind of were talking about. This was created.
Trans. She dropped out of that fight.
Right. Well, I mean, and I saw something, and I can't remember who it is. I feel like it's Russia, but she was disqualified. She was disqualified in another competition last year. And like I said, each competition has their own set of criteria. And because of, and I do believe that I do believe she did have a hormonal disorder. I think I did hear that this week, but I'm not claiming that for 100%, guys, but I believe I heard that she does have a hormonal disorder. So in the previous competition, she was disqualified and was not able to compete, her and another one, because they both had this hormonal disorder, right? And so that people were using that to say, oh, see, she wasn't qualified last year. So then that country that supports that criteria, whoever it is, and again, I think it's Russia, they came out and they are paying $50,000 to the woman who withdrew and $100,000 to her coaches because they feel like she was wronged. And that is pushing more misinformation. But again, if we're talking about Russia, you get it? Y'all see this? You see the line here, guys? And you know who was pushing the rhetoric the most? The most. What country do you think was talking the most anti-trans BS against her?
I guess.
Ours. Us.
Yeah.
Us.
Yeah.
Because we like to scream and shout when when we're confronted with things that we don't understand. We like to go, no, that's not true. It's false.
You
You're
know what I found?
monsters.
There was a trans athlete. There was a trans boxer this year. It's a trans man. And no one is screaming, how dare you let a
Nope.
woman in to be hit by men? No one's saying that. I thought you thought that was
Nope.
a woman. I thought you didn't think that was a man. You're not worried about someone you perceive as a woman getting hit by a man?
No.
Or you would say
No.
something, not a word. That's interesting. Because if you think
I think
that,
the truth is they created the structure. They created the structure for what female is supposed to be. And when you fall out of that female structure that they've created, then that's off the table. You're a man.
yep. Well, and it's
It,
just
it,
it's always rooted in misogyny. The idea that how
yep.
dare a man lower himself to the status of a woman is such a
Right.
concern. Now, as far as it being, I don't know. I've heard so many different things at this point. And again, not being a doctor or any kind of expert, I don't know. My
Right.
understanding is that she does have an XY that is expressed by or not expressed by the SRY. So you can still be biologically, physiologically, let's call it
Right.
female, assigned birth based on your
Right.
physiology, but you've got that to extra testosterone because you do have that SRY expression going on, but it doesn't, or the lack of the expression doesn't create the penis. I don't know how it works. I'm not a
Right.
geneticist, but
Right.
really down to, and what makes my confusing little rant so interesting is what that means is it is not easy to understand. There is a lot more to it, and we need to not worry about it. We need to stop getting so worried. If that was literally a man just trying to, I guess, portray himself as a woman in order to what? Compete in the Olympics? Okay, I guess you could want to compete desperately enough, maybe, and have a chance at winning a medal. You'd go to all that trouble? So much trouble that you would have started when you were a child and had all these pictures of you dressed as a little girl, being a little girl. Like you started that Olympic dream early. Nobody's doing that. Trans people aren't
Mm-mm.
doing even predatory, bad men or women aren't doing that. That's a lot of
Right.
hoop that don't make a lot of
Right.
sense.
Right. And we were going to kind of talk about that tonight, like with the drag queens. And I have like the stats pulled up for that to kind of show again that it's not about we're highlighting and focused on the wrong things. And I think for everybody this week, here was a woman that dropped out of a fight. And so they're like, oh, look, she looks a little more masculine, but she's a man. And it was just such an easy reach. And because it's a political year here, it's a voting year here, it's an election year. You have all these politicians who are running. And right now, the more you can stir the pot, the more controversy you can cause. The more you can scream and shout, the more people pay attention. And that is what's going on. And so for them, again, to create some attention, instead of looking at the boxer and hearing the story and looking into it that, this other woman had been in a competition before and the injury hadn't healed. And so this was just too much. And she was like, I can't do it. I'm out. Instead of listening to her words, her actual experience that she shared, you let the gun. You decided, I'm going to guess that this has got to be a man trying to pretend to be a woman to get a medal. And I'm going to go ahead and stir all this trash without knowing any facts, without knowing the harms that was going to cause. And again, this woman is in a country that people are killed because they're trans. And you're putting this information on her to travel back with what? Again, the target on her back, the target on her family, the target around the people. Like this is not the USA we're talking about. So when we start taking a conversation that we politicize here and we start reflecting that onto other cultures, we do not know the harms we are inflicting. And if we don't know any better, this is the time where we sit down and we shut our mouths.
Yeah.
And just be quiet. If you don't know, just be quiet.
I mean, they just, people here just don't care, though. They don't care if that person goes back and is harmed.
Right. Right.
It is what they want. They just want those people to stop existing. Pretty please hurry up. And
right.
Imane is a great
She's
example.
not even one of those. She's not even one of those, though. That's the whole thing. She's not even trans. So you're like, so now you're against women?
Gonna keep
happening. I mean, we kind of already, I'll be honest, we already knew that. We already knew y'all were against women. But, just make it a little bit more clearer, please.
Yeah. It's a wild ride, and it's definitely harmful to her. It continues to put more of a target on the backs of trans people everywhere, because it
puts it back on anybody. Right. It puts the target on anybody. I mean, that's what we've gotten to. So now when people walk into a store, when someone walks into a bathroom, people are doing bathroom checks.
Yeah.
I just got to pee. Get out of my way. And this is, so when you have people in the room who are talking about a bunch of stuff that they don't know what they're talking about, and they have a high status in culture, in politics, in corporations, whatever, when you have high status and you talk this kind of crap and you have the platform that you can push that agenda far and wide, it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
And they don't care.
No, they don't care. They don't care at all.
Don't care. And, we have to be the people who do care, and we have to be the people who try to inject some reason in it. I don't know. Oh, are you okay, buddy? My dog's coughing.
Well, it's kind of like I saw where you were talking about your post yesterday. We can go into this topic. What do you do when you work in a work environment where you don't feel safe with your coworkers?
So here's my thing. I'll go ahead and tell the story. I have a personal Facebook page, most people do, and then I have one that is like my business page. It's not really, I don't have it like listed as the business Facebook, but it's, anyway, it's my company name, and then it's my name.
Right.
And it's where I post, things about my business and what I'm doing.
Work.
Right, work. And sometimes I'll throw a little dog meme or something on there. But within having that company Facebook page, I am friends, Facebook friends with other people I work with. And I'm friends with their own professional Facebook pages, kind of like mine. And I'm also there with their personal ones. And I'm on there, and, I do my scroll because sometimes I'll see something within my own industry that I'll share. And I consistently see a lot of the people that I work with are in Oklahoma and Texas, and they've got, shitty views, in my opinion. And they, they were about the Imane, and they were posting about, of course, the Last Supper stuff, which is freaking hilarious. I don't even care, directly, whatever. I see that stuff all day, every day. And there's not any consideration from them. And I guess I shouldn't expect there to be. Nobody should care about my feelings. We
Right.
should care about other people's feelings, right? But at the same time, like, I don't expect the world to cater to my experience or my feelings. It's
Right.
just creates this situation where I see stuff like that. And I think these are the people I have to work with. I have to trust them. I have to like value their guidance and leadership because they are far ahead of me. I'm only a year into
Right.
this. And now, frankly, I
Don't
mean, if
want to.
you're that stupid, you know what I mean? If you can't see some correction and then go, oh, I was wrong about this, or if you can't dig any deeper, or you just believe the very first thing you see, I now question your intelligence. I now
Right.
not only question your character, because even if it were all true, even if being trans was a choice and there was nothing genetic or hormonal or chromosomal about it, even if it was a choice, why are we being cruel to people who are
Right.
just trying the way that it's not a choice? But even if it was, why wouldn't we just be like, oh, okay, like that person? I mean, some people choose to dye their hair. Some people choose to get breast implants. Some people choose to, go live off the grid in the
Be
woods.
vegan.
Vegan.
Be vegan. Like,
Why are we going to now make life difficult for people when they're just trying to wear different clothes and have a different name and pronouns? Like, who cares? Fine. Like, so now I not only think you're an ugly person, I think you're stupid. And I don't trust anything you say. Or I just
right.
take it, can I trust them on a professional level that they know what they're talking about within the industry? Sure, probably. But now I don't have any respect for you at all.
Well,
And
I think what it did was it opened the conversation. So, you're the parent of a trans kid. So if you're seeing that and you, if you haven't shared, and I'm not asking if you shared, we don't need to know that
I
information, but
but I am in a corporate, and it's mostly people kind of outsort that corporate bubble. That's not happening within with the people in my office. So I'm very grateful for that. They know better.
right. And see, that's what I'm saying though. Like, if you work in an environment like that, and you have people that are out here saying that about Imane, and you're a parent of a trans or a gender diverse kid, and you're seeing all your coworkers talk
Right.
this way, what is going to make you want to? Because we have a tendency, and I know this from LinkedIn, we have a tendency that if we make a professional contact here on connection on LinkedIn, and we're friends for long enough here, we may go connect on Facebook on somewhere that is more personal, right? So that then you're sharing more about yourselves on that personal level. And so if you go that far to then share that information, and someone is talking like that in your office, you don't feel safe to share anything about your kid. And you feel honestly guarded at everything you do within work. So now not only have you affected harms on that trans person, you affected harms on the parent of a trans kid, or the parent of it, or the spouse of someone who's trans. Like, it doesn't matter. You've affected that whole community with your harm, with your
I have
ignorance.
There's another guy within my corporation. He is a gay man, and his wife is transgender. And so I guess he's not a gay man, he's a queer man. His wife is transgender. And I couldn't help but wonder if he was connected to this person, because this person was someone within the company that all of us know for reasons because of this
Right.
person and how they contribute to the company. We all know this person personally, have met him, have eaten with him, see him at the company Christmas functions. We know this person. And I can't help but wonder, like, did he see this? How does that,
Make them feel.
and how do you interact? Like, frankly, the next time I see him, I just don't, like, I don't have anything to say. And I'm not going to be ugly because I'm not an ugly person. It's just not how I like
Right.
to live.
I just won't make interaction.
I just don't want to interact. I just don't want
Right.
to go away. I mean, you suck. You think my child is bad, broken, disordered, mentally unwell, and a danger to people? Why the fuck would I want to interact with you? I wouldn't want to.
Right.
And
Right.
people don't get that. It's like, well, just accept that people have different beliefs. Okay.
No.
But if I told you, like, if you knew that I wanted someone you loved to off themselves, would you want to hang out with me? Would you even want to talk to me? I don't want to talk to that
I
person.
really hope not.
I
I
have
hope
nothing to say.
not. Like, I mean, I really hope not.
Genuinely.
Like, have a
So
little common decency.
it's really easy to say stuff like that when it's not you, when it's not your kid, when you're not
Right.
bombarded with, not surrounded by that. So yeah, I'm actively pursuing another job.
Well, I mean, and then it's like, if you're here in the comments, if you're watching and you don't have someone who's trans or non-binary or gender diverse within your right your circle, but then you go into a workplace where someone does have a child who is, and
Right.
again, you're participating in these conversations of misinformation and disinformation. You've now made your employees, and if you're the employer, even worse, you made the entire company feel unsafe.
And it's not
Um,
like the HR and say, well, this happened like within the office and I have some kind of unsafe work environment. This happened on somebody's personal Facebook page. And frankly, that's
right,
not even something I'm going to say something about anyway. Cool, live your life, but I genuinely want nothing to do with you. And I mean, I
right.
saw multiple people and was just like, God damn.
Right? Yeah. No, like I saw your post and then I think I saw a different post and I was like, ooh, because I like reached out to Jenny and was like, I've seen your post. Is everything okay? Like,
Like,
it sounds like it was a bad day at work, like, or a bad week at work. Like, what's going on? And
yeah.
this is like, that is a mental health harm. We are talking about mental health harm. And when we talk about that the trans community is already so overwhelmingly attached to that, to depression, to anxiety, to suicidal ideation. Like this is not good for them. It's not good for their mental
Ooh,
health. It's not good for the parent of the child who's going through this.
it it really made my whole, it was all week I was seeing an hour and a friggin' day since it all came
Hmm.
out. And on top, like it, I don't really suffer from bad depressive episodes anymore, but I do get them. It does happen. That's just part of having
Right.
to have major depressive disorder. It's very well controlled, but I do have those moments.
Right.
But like, I can't imagine what that would be like for, somebody who is sitting there wondering, somebody who's
Right.
not out, somebody who just found out their kid just came out and they're already struggling.
Right.
It's hard on
They're gonna be
me.
just like you. Like, I gotta find a new job.
It's kind of like, well, what do you, why wouldn't somebody have the thoughts of this is never going to get better, that life isn't worth living? Why wouldn't somebody feel that way?
Look at this
I
environment. Like, this isn't
I
gonna get better.
we try to attribute things like depression or suicidal ideation. We try to attribute those only to the most severe of mental illness, and that's not the case. Sometimes
No.
things are so depressing that you get in that place and it can be difficult to get out of. And when you are part
Right.
of a marginalized and oppressed and abused and attacked community, holy crap, it's like the
Right.
gunfire never ends. The
Right. The
barrage
dominoes just
of,
keep falling.
there's there's no reprieve. I get the privilege of a reprieve because
Right.
it's people I care about, but I don't have to sit with it in me like it's
Right.
me, and
Right.
smokes, y'all. So honestly, just like shut up about some stuff on your, imagine how, my analogy was, and this actually did happen to our friend Vanessa Joy, and I hope she doesn't mind me giving her a
Hmm.
shout out. This happened to her. She is considering getting back into a certain field. That's as far as I'm going to say about it. And another individual in that field had posted something about it. And all of the comments under it were other people from that field. Let's call it teachers. It's not. All
Right.
Anyway, whatever it was, everybody under in those comments were from that exact same field, and they were all agreeing and egging it on and contributing it to the hate. And those people work with customers, clients, the public, whatever. imagine coming across that on socials. We're all connected on socials in some way. Imagine coming
Right?
across that and going like, I just trusted this person with my money, with a major purchase. I just trusted this
Right?
person with a huge chapter of my life. And this is what they think about the people I care about. This this is what they think about me potentially. Like,
Right?
you're not just, I mean, cool. I hope it does cost them business. I really, really do. It brings me joy
Yeah.
to think it might cost them money. I love that.
I hate to say it, but sometimes I feel like that's what makes people think is when they lose money.
Sure. But I mean, if it at least makes you think to shut up,
Uh,
because you're
yeah.
isolating, you're making people feel unsafe. After seeing all those comments and that gal's post, because I went ahead and I had to creep it, I was like, holy smokes, what impression would that give people about that entire field? You had 20
Right?
different from that field. Holy crap, that must be what they're all like. We know that's not true, but at the same time, like, I'm trying to maintain compassion, integrity, love, acceptance, not just as part of who I am, but in every single thing I do, so that any
Right?
person who my business to make a major purchase knows you are safe with me. You are
Right?
never going to post something like that. I wouldn't even
Right?
think that. I want to treat every single human being with dignity, love, and respect. And if that is some kind of mission statement for your company or your office, and you got people in your office doing stuff, where is the dignity, the love, the respect in that? It's not there.
Right?
Don't be stupid.
Actions are much louder than words. And granted, like in comments, if you've got people who are writing comments like that, it's going to look like granted, those are words, but those are your actions because you're choosing to make those statements and you're choosing to make them publicly and you're choosing to post them on social media, knowing that you are pushing a misagenda. You are pushing disinformation and misinformation. And you honestly, in my opinion, don't care about other human beings.
I don't think the people that I've seen and some people that I've called out did not realize that was misinformation. They're stupid. So it's like,
Yeah,
I'm not even going to attribute to maliciousness what can be
right,
attributed to stupidity. You're dumb, but
right,
your stupidity is causing harm. So how about if you're stupid, just shut up? Like, stick
right.
to what your field is and stick to cat videos and don't speak out on things like science. Don't do it.
Cat videos.
You have a sixth grade understanding of biology. You're dumb.
Yep,
Shut up.
right, right.
I'm
Hmm,
smart enough to know I'm dumb. I'm smart enough to sit here and say, no, I do not know what it is with her chromosomes or her hormones or her this and
right,
that. Is she
right.
sex? I know. So I'm not going to speak to that. I'm only going to speak to, I have no idea what that stuff is. I'm going to trust the powers that be in that instance. She qualified. Every single
Right.
bit of shows she's a woman. Move on.
Leave her alone. It should have
Leave her
never
alone.
been. There just should have never been the conversation, and the fact that the conversation even happened after she had already been approved to play the sport. Like again, like Jenny said, she would have never been approved, and the fact that she was approved, that should have left the door closed on ever opening up the door to this misinformation. Now, just for those watching, misinformation is when you say something that's false. Disinformation is when you know it's false and you say it anyway.
Right.
And that's the reason why we're both using both words, because there are people who are doing both. There are some people who don't know what they're talking about who are speaking, and then there are people who know that it's false and they're pushing it anyway
Yeah.
because they know the harm. That's their intent.
That's what's
And
wild to
that's
me.
kind of the reason why we're talking about this, because it's people who are intentional on this hate.
It's the
They're
it,
purposefully doing it.
it's weird. It's
It is.
weird.
It's
Why would
culty.
What is it about you that says intentional cruelty is who I want to be? Are you a psychopath? Are you a sociopath? I mean, okay, like, say that. Maybe that's what we're like genetically testing for and trying to figure out and understand the neurobiology of. That's what we
Right?
should try eradicating is psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yeah.
That's the more harmful. Like, isolate that
Is it
neuron.
cognitive dissonance?
It's bonkers.
Those who are cognitively dissonant. Like, if you can't make sense, then just sit down and stay out of
Yeah,
it, please. Please.
shut
lead the conversation for those who
For
honestly, I hate to say it, have skin in the game. The parents, the people within the community, the
well,
doctors who are
who are
actually doing the science,
people who are interested in learning, who are genuinely
right?
curious. And that curiosity is based on wanting to make the world a better place, not wanting to push, have your own way, or keep things the
Right?
way that they used to be. Newsflash, the way things used to be wasn't that great. I
No.
don't, it's great for certain people. And ask yourself why you align with that. Like, was it great for you because you're a straight cisgender white male? Well, of course. Like, when has America not been great for you? When
The
was it?
rest of us, not
The
so
rest of,
much,
but there are some of us who are genuinely curious about, okay, well, why is this the way it is?
right?
And because knowing and understanding does make the world better, and it makes the world safer. And it means that we can be better stewards of our planet and of our fellow man.
Oh man. Like, I
And
mean,
for
I thought that's what it
fellow
really always was about. It was always supposed to be about our fellow man. Like, it was about we were human beings. This was society. We were a country. We live within communities. And those all speak to something that are bigger than an individual.
right.
So we got to
Yeah.
be able to get along and we got to be able to respect one another. And like, I was raised, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Amen.
And I
Yeah.
understand that. I understand we got Twitter and all these different places that we can shout our feelings now
Right.
in big capital letters.
Yeah. Get a
But
journal. Like, get a therapist. Go tell your therapist your feelings. Go tell therapists. The people that are different scare me. Go do that.
right, right, go, get some counseling
Please.
so that you can be a better human being among the rest of us. Um, that sounds harsh. It's not to be harsh. It just really is. I do think that we should look at ourselves as we are just a very small part of it. We are all pieces. We can't. AP and I talk about this on Lyrical all the time. We rise together or we sink together. And that doesn't mean that we're all going to agree to rise or we're all going to agree to sink, but it's going to pivot one way or another. And
Well,
it's going
yeah.
to drag the rest of people with them.
What's that? A rising tide lifts all boats. So,
Yes, yes,
but an anchor, certain anchors is going to drag everybody down. Somebody pulls the
right,
plug out, you're creating we're all going down the same drain.
right. And I
I'm,
don't want to
I'm
get down a drain.
I'm very interested in the direction of, our nation. Rome fell. I'm not sure that we can sustain the way that we are. And I don't think it's as simple as, well, if we would just all adopt leftist ideology or if we would all just do this.
Right.
It takes collaboration and cohesiveness. And
It does.
it's just a bizarre place to be whenever the point of contention that we have is over the treatment of human beings. Like, I don't get that.
Right.
That's weird to
I
me.
don't either. I
Okay,
don't either. I don't remember a human rights issue like
okay,
this
like, go
before.
taxes. I mean, okay, like, but we're talking about humans, and we can't even come together on that. And it's because there's so much ignorance. It was even refreshing to hear my dad say, like, "Wow, I didn't realize this was not very black and white." And I'm like, how do you listen to anything besides what, like, your own shit? Do you listen to anything? You have a transgender grandson. How have you gotten curious and given
Have
him
you
a degree?
not listened? Have you not listened to me explain this?
Just
Talk to
like,
you about this.
get curious, like, try to learn. So
Get
it's
curious.
get curious. So yeah, just like get curious, but not for the sake of proving someone wrong or
Right.
bolstering your own ideas. Get curious for the sake of learning. And if you
Right.
will lead with, I am curious, and my primary motivation is the betterment of people, is to treat people well, is to
Right.
be good to people. If you can lead with that motivation and curiosity, like, we're going to do so many great things. And you just
Right.
have so much ignorance And then you add hate to that. I mean, ignorance just breeds hate. And then the two of them are just
Right.
a perfect storm for becoming a
Right.
really awful person.
And creating a wildfire. Like, I mean, just to spread. And that it does. It picks up. Hate seems to spread very quickly.
Yeah. It's that it's so, that's
Much
such a great
quicker
analogy.
than love.
Like,
It
because it's so
is.
damaging. A wildfire is so damaging that it's like, well, yeah, enough water can put it out. Enough love can overcome hate. But the damage that's done after a wildfire or like a tornado, like you can rebuild. Sure, we had
Yep.
insurance. Okay, but everything's still
But how
gone.
long does it take? Right?
Like all my pictures are
That
gone. My
takes
dog
time,
is
that
dead.
takes energy,
Right.
right? There's a lot of rebuilding to that,
Then you've
and we
got the
shouldn't have
trauma
to.
of what's left behind, the actual trauma to humans that happens after devastating stuff like that. So it's
Yep.
not as simple as just like, we just need to be more loving. I wish it was, but it's just not.
No, it's not. Love doesn't fix.
It's just not going to
Love
fix
can
everything.
go a long way, but it doesn't fix everything. You've got
We
to have
have to.
people. You've got to have support systems in place. Like, that is the importance of
Right.
why we talk about this, is because their support systems are being taken away currently. Like, we are in an environment right now across the US where we are trying to take those rights away. And we're not taking away from just a human population of adults, we're trying to take away from children as well.
Right. Right.
And that is Jenny and I, that's probably our biggest issue, is that it's not just that we're attacking human beings, we're attacking kids. Like, what
Kids.
happened to stop bullying? I don't understand. And now we've given immunity to the highest powers of the land to bully and bulldoze whoever and whenever.
Well, my
And
friend
I
Johnny
won't.
says, I agree with Johnny Ben. It's okay to bully some people. I'll bully Elon Musk. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even seeing that kind of half jokingly, kind of not jokingly, but kind of, that's what happens with people. They're like, oh no, don't bully anybody. But those people are weird, so you can. No, stop. These are children.
Yep.
They're just children, and if
Right.
they change their mind, they change their mind, and if they don't, they don't. And if they go through a phase, and if they regret this, let their parents handle
Love them
it. It's
anyway.
okay. It's gonna be okay. But
Right.
we're keeping kids alive, and we're showing children that we love them, and
Yep.
everybody will get through it. I guarantee, generally speaking, 99.9% of the time, a cisgender kid is not going to come to you and say, "Hey, I think I'm trans."
Right.
They're just not going to. And if they do,
No.
kind of like Dr. Diana said, when they're super little, because maybe they do think, maybe they equate, well, I'm a tomboy and that must mean I'm a trans boy. Okay, calm
Right.
down. Give them that space, give them that time, let them try on a name or a pronoun or, pants, cut their hair off, whatever. If they're not really trans, I promise you, they're not going to keep that up
They'll come
because
back pretty
it's
soon
not
and be like,
worth
that
it.
doesn't work.
Yeah, it's not
No.
worth it. Once they see
No.
what they're up against, they're not all going like, oh yeah, this is a fun little fad.
It's
It's
not
not.
fun. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. And I think that is a joke that gets spread quite often, right? That it's fun. Oh, they're trying on this trend, and it's like, oh, putting a belly button ring in. No, it's not.
No, right. No, it's not fun for them. And maybe it is at 5 or 6 or 7 or what. I mean, cool. I have a friend whose little boy is 8, and she's gotten a lot of flack even from within the trans community about like, how dare you. She had not suggested putting her kid on hormones whatsoever. She had suggested going to here locally, we have what's called the Diversity Health Clinic, because she knew that those doctors would treat her child respectfully with care,
Right.
call him by his appropriate name. And a lot of people gave her a lot of, hard times for that. Like, oh, how dare you? What are you trying to put him on
Right.
hormones? Like, absolutely freaking not. I don't even know where the hell I was going with this, but with those little kids, it's just like, let them experience that for a minute. If they change their mind, they're going to change their mind and everything's going to be okay. But if
Right.
you freak out about it, then you become your child's first bully. If you freak out about it, you
Yep.
immediately tell them next time you're going through something, next time you have an idea, you can't tell me. Next
No.
time you think something or you're struggling, You better not take it to me. And that's how suicides happen.
Right.
When a young person feels like they have no hope, nowhere to turn, no one who's going to accept and love them, that's how that
Yep.
happens. It doesn't have to be about being trans. It would be the same if we suddenly got super psycho crazy in this country about all of our students having straight A's. There are other countries where the pressure that is put on
Right.
students leads them to taking their own lives. It's not about whether they're trans or what their sexuality might be or what their grades are. It's about this lack of love, support, acceptance, and like peace and serenity that
Right.
kids, and they feel hopeless and scared, and like there's no other choice. So
That's sad. We don't want to have. We don't want to see it happen.
terrible.
There's enough people within the trans community, unfortunately, who won't make it to see tomorrow. Every day, and we're just trying to lower the number if possible. Um, Lower the harm. Just spread a little compassion, people. Please, please, a little bit. And if you see an article, if you see a post that's talking highly about this, meaning in support of her, um, and pushing back against the misinformation and disinformation, support it, comment on it. If you
Yes,
see
please
posts where
engage
they're
with that.
not, push back against it. Like, this is where you can make a difference by just speaking up and saying, that's not true. It's
Right.
been proven. Like, enough. And you don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be rude. You can just say, that's not, literally, you could just say, that's not true.
Right. And you
And
don't
maybe
have to
it'll
get
get
into back
whoever that
and forth.
poster to go look. Maybe they'll go look up the information. Maybe that will give
Yeah.
them enough curiosity. What, is that wrong? Maybe I should go look this up. Maybe that will give
Yes.
them the push. But that's
If
a
you
little
find a good
tiny
source,
bit that you can do,
share
right?
your source with factual information, because
Right?
people do like to read something that it looks like, it's more factual than just your opinion saying that's not
Right?
right. They're going to get in a back and
Right?
forth. Share your source and then move on and then walk away.
Right?
And whenever you see people supporting that, step in and say, that's, love this. That's so great too.
Right?
Every person who sees, I know that if I see enough negativity, it starts to jack with my mental health. So imagine what seeing enough
Right?
positivity could do for somebody who's really suffering.
Right? Right? That's exactly the reason why, like last night, like I said, that I had already written up a statement so that we could kind of talk about this tonight on the original show, was because I was seeing so many posts this week, yesterday, that were reiterating over and over and over, like, stop with this misinformation. Support her. Because again, you don't know the harms that you're doing. And this woman isn't even in the trans community. And it was just again calling out that when we started talking about this rhetoric, and when people push this rhetoric, these are the harms that can be done to other people who aren't even in this community. And that's the bigger problem here, is this woman didn't even deserve the vitriol and the hatred that she got. And she's still getting.
And worked her ass off to get to the
Yep.
Olympics, you know,
Thanks.
sponsored and excited by her country. What an achievement, right? It's like that person who's at the Oscars, like, it's an honor just to be nominated. It
Right?
is. And
Right?
she got there. Now, this is all anybody's talking about with her. Not her accomplishments as an athlete, not anything about
Right?
the human being she might be. She might rescue fucking baby kittens every weekend. We have no idea.
Not her
All we
strength,
know
not
about
her
is she has a lot of
determination, not
testosterone.
how much, right, not how much work she did to get to where she's at.
Right. Oh, it couldn't
Not her
possibly be just
daily like
that.
workouts,
Like
like
kind of
every single day for hours and hours and hours, the training that
right.
she had to do, the fights that she went through, the losses, the wins, all of it to
Right.
get to where she's at. And you diminished it down to her
Oh, she has a
gender
lot of
identity that wasn't even a fact.
right. Right. It's dumb. It's dumb.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Well,
All right.
we have
Yeah,
once again
we're
past our time. I love it.
I know. I always like, whenever I do these on TikTok, when I have to go post them, I have to go back and like shorten them down to the
Yeah.
59 minutes and 59
Yeah.
seconds so I can put it out on TikTok. And I'm always like, damn, I gotta figure out where I'm cutting off.
Yeah.
What do I take off. So
You
yeah,
can,
oops.
you can
Oh
cut off
well.
the first part. Obviously, you can cut off this part. I mean, there's always little blips and pieces you can take out. My
Right,
leg, I'm in a weird
right.
position. All right,
Well,
well,
I mean,
that's
that's kind of
it.
why we have multiple
Yeah,
places you can catch us at for that very purpose. So with that in mind, next week, and I hate to say it, I've already forgotten his last name.
Dennis
Jenny,
Baker.
we are bringing
Call
out
him.
Baker. Yes, there it is,
He's an
Baker. But
awesome
he's going to
guy.
be our guest next week. Woohoo!
Very excited to talk to him. He is a very cool guy. I don't know how much research you've done on him if you've even started it, but he's got a really neat
Barely.
career past. I mean, he's just a great guy. He is an indigenous man from Oklahoma. It's very, very cool. I love you
Awesome.
so much. I hope everybody has a fantastic
Yes.
rest of their Sunday. I am actually going to do
Yes.
Shrinky Dink art and make Shrinky Dinks.
I'm going to go watch Walking Dead with my kids, I think.
Even
We've
better,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah, we've gotten back into that. My oldest has never seen it. Like he picked up season 8 and watched it forward with me. And because the youngest gave up at season 8. And so
Well,
like he
he
dropped out.
missed
The other
all
one
of
picked
it.
it up with me. I know,
Yeah.
right? So now we're going back and we started it over and we're almost to season. Are we in the fourth season? I think we're like halfway through the fourth season. But so we're
Okay.
getting there. But that's kind of our. I
Yeah.
stopped doing my. I just didn't have the energy, the brain power. So I just kind of, they started doing movie nights when I was in recovery. And I just kind of, okay, we're watching something. What are we watching?
Yeah.
I didn't have to think. Just they put it on and mom just watches. Um, yeah, that's my recoup, saving my mental energy for other things. So that being
Well,
said, thank you guys for coming this evening. We will see you next week. And we will repeat. You'll see a similar banner like this in like 2 weeks for drag queens when we bring Karma back. Um, but until next week, join us at 7 o'clock, 6 p.m. Central Time Eastern, and we will see you then. Bye.
bye.